Welcome back to my channel. One of the upgrades that we're doing in our RV is we're installing these LED pot lights. And I got these on Amazon, and they're really good for what we want to do because they're very thin. So the cavity here between the top and the bottom, there's about 1.5 inches space where they've used it as a wire chase to run all the wires for the lights that were here before. And they were your typical analog switch lights that you see on all the different RVs, and there's nothing wrong with them. They just don't throw off very nice light. They use a lot of power, and you can buy LED bulbs for them, but they're very expensive, and they don't always work so well. So I'm gonna be installing these today. In this area here, the area underneath my kitchen counter, and also in the back area where the bed is. So let's get started. So the first thing that I have to do is make the hole, and I'm using a 2 1/4 inch hole saw to make the hole, and I measured halfway along the valance, so which is 40 inches. So my first light is going to be right there, and then I'll go half this way and half that way and have 3 lights over top of the couch. And I will keep the lights closer to the edge here because when you're sitting on the couch, you want them to be as close to the middle of the couch as possible. So let's get started with that. So remember the old saying, measure twice, maybe 3 times, make one hole. Now, when I was doing this, I wanted to be extra careful because there are some wires running up there which I didn't want to hit, and I didn't, which is good. So let's measure up for the next ones. Interesting enough, on RVs, sometimes they use different colors than what we would be used to. Like, I'm used to a red wire being positive and a black wire being negative. But in this, for instance, the black wire is the positive and there's a yellow wire which is the negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of tape around the black wire just for my own reference. So when I'm working with this, I know which one is which, and I don't make a mistake. Now these wires are also live, so I'm going to shut that off in a minute. I should have probably done that already, but I didn't. So I've been able to fish the wires. I've got one set of wires here, and I've used some 16 gauge, and it's green. So I've labeled each wire with a red and black tape. The stuff's expensive and I'm not going to waste it, so that's how I'm doing that. And then this one runs into the middle here where the switch wires are. And then these here, they run back over here for the other pot light. So we're going to have 3 lights in here. And I fish these wires using something as simple as a piece of 14-2 120 volt wire. I was able to fish it through there's a channel that's about, oh, 1.5 inches deep that runs below all the cabinets in this motorhome. And I would imagine it's the same in a lot of motorhomes. There's a wire chase for the wires to run through with a board up top and then the board down below. So I'm going to, the next thing I'm going to do is, as you can see here, I've put on a connector that's going to connect up to this pot light. And the reason I did that is I will be putting a connector on the other end on the pot light, the male version of it. And that way, if I ever have a problem with any of these pot lights, it's going to be very easy for me to just unhook it, pop another one in, and away we go. So the next thing that I'm going to do on this end is the same thing. I'm going to put these connectors on, and then I'm going to put, I'm going to heat shrink them. They're connectors that I got off of Amazon from a company called Jinsco. I'm sure they're from China, and they've got like a heat sink end on them. And I have a little torch that I do that with. And I'm using this thing is great. It's just a professional wire shielding tool. So you don't, when you're shielding your wire, you're not taking off a bunch of the wire at the same time as shielding the outside covering of the wire. It just works amazing. No using drywall knives or anything like that to shield it or to take the wire off. And you give the wire a little twist, so that way when you put it in the hole of the connector, it's not gonna start to fray back on you. It's an extremely hot day today in Brantford, Ontario. So I've been running the air conditioner in the RV, but can't run the air conditioner while I'm filming because nobody will be able to hear me. Now I've got these pliers here which have a little crimp item on them. And I always make sure that I'm holding the wire and I push on a little bit to make sure that it's still in where it needs to be. And I'm crimping these double. So I've got a pair of needle nose which are good for that. Because I find if you don't, the wire has a tendency to move around. And then I just give it a little pull like that to make sure that, sure indeed, it is a good connection. And then when I heat shrink it, that'll also keep it from moving. And sometimes even when you're putting the wire in, if you just turn it a little bit, the same way that you turn the wires, that can also help to feed the wire. So those are crimped. And I've seen people use lighters and all kinds of different heat guns and whatever, but I like using this little guy here. It's easy to hold on to and doesn't throw a flame per se out onto anything. And you just keep circling it around the wire. to heat it evenly and not burn it. That's it. Keep the wire and the little torch moving. And there we go. And now it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, so now we're in the middle here. I'm going to wire this up. I put my plug underneath here, or my switch I should say, and it's just one of these little toggle switches that I got off Amazon. Got 5 in a pack. And of course they have the international on and off symbol, the 1 for on and the 0 for off. And it's got the little connectors to put a crimp on it, which come with the switches. And then, so the lights themselves are just these little LED puck lights. And they have a little transformer box here. And you just use a 2-inch hole saw to cut your openings. And then you hold that up like that. You shove your wires up in, you just pop that up, and it just snaps like that inside, not on your hands. And then you're good to go. So we'll continue on. So I'm going to wire this up and I will be back. So I got everything wired up and I'm using these torque kettle connectors. I did a video on these earlier. They're really great. They come in different numerations, so different connectors, how many you can have. So when you're joining up a bunch of wires, connecting lights together and so on, they work really, really well. And I always put a little bit of tape around them when I'm done to make sure that the little clips don't come apart, just like you would any electrical connection. So, the moment of truth. I got a little switch up here. Click the switch. We got lights. Really cool. And I was able to use where the old wire or the old standard light that came with these RVs ancient times ago, like in 2000, and even a lot of them now have that the old cheap little analog light. I was able to use the hole that the wires came through for that light, and I'll show you in a second what that looks like, but I'm just going to tuck all these wires up inside. It wasn't too difficult fishing all the wires through this bulkhead. It worked quite well. Sometimes, you know, there's things in the way, but this worked out pretty good. And then these lights, they basically just the material up on the top, and by the looks of it, there is an adjustment on them. So, screwdriver. so it can be lowered a little bit. Let's see if it'll go now. Make sure all the wires are tucked away out of the way. And look at that. Very cool. The next one. I'll let you take a look. So here they are. And you can see how I reuse the hole for the switch. Like so. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope this will help you if you decide to upgrade your lights in your RV or your motorhome or your boat or anywhere else. And please subscribe to my channel. I'll be putting a lot more helpful videos up. And hit the like button. And I'd appreciate any comments. And as always, thanks for watching. Hope you're all staying safe. For now, see you later. Thanks, Rob.